to close to $110 million over the next 2 years if he remains on their roster. And Schefter reporting that the franchise actually prefers to move on from the four-time MVP, just as it once did with Brett Favre. Pat McAfee asked Rodgers about the situation on his show. Listen to this.
So how do you see this going? You have to figure out what you want to do, and then your first call is to the Packers, and then you let them know what you're thinking, and then they said that we'll let you know what we're thinking, and then that's kind of how the whole process will unfold, you think?
I think so. I mean, it sounds like there's already conversations going on that aren't involving me, which are interesting. It's going to be a little bit more time for my decision, and, I feel confident that in a couple of weeks I'll feel definitely more strongly about one of the two decisions.
All right, in a Q&A on Twitter, Rodgers' former teammate and current Raider, Davante Adams, was asked about which neighborhood Aaron Rodgers is moving to. His response, mine. So we now have Damian Woody joining us now. And here's the question, Dan. I'm going to start with you on this one, actually. Where do you think Rodgers has the best chance to win another Super Bowl, Green Bay or somewhere else?
Oh, it's Green Bay. It's not even close. To win a Super Bowl through the NFC is so much easier than the AFC right now. This is very similar to what I said about the 2020 Tom Brady move from New England. Get the heck out of the AFC. The AFC is a murderer's row of teams and quarterbacks. Kansas City, Cincinnati, Buffalo, Baltimore, Jacksonville, the Chargers. You have to do it in the AFC is so difficult. You got to catch breaks in so many different ways. The NFC, what team in the NFC do we really feel good about going into next year and maybe even the future that is going to be here for the long haul? Philly? I think Philly has got a chance to be really good for a while. San Francisco is going to be in that conversation anytime they have Kyle, but we got to see what's going to happen at quarterback for them. Trey Lance, Brock Purdy, somebody else. I think it should be those two guys. Detroit's going to be very good next year, but there's a bunch of good teams, but there's not many teams that have really good teams and absolute dudes at quarterback. The AFC has like 6 of them. So to win a Super Bowl, the best chance realistically is in Green Bay. To do it in the AFC right now is night-night.
Yeah, listen, I agree a lot with what Dan was talking about, especially the fact that all you have to do is look at where are all the great quarterbacks at in the NFL
AFC?
right now. They all reside in the AFC. And the question is, what place gives you the best chance to get back to the Super Bowl? I'm damn sure not going to the place where all the quarterbacks reside, all the great quarterbacks reside. Like you talked about, Dan. You got Patrick Mahomes, you got Joe Burrow, you got Josh Allen. All those great quarterbacks reside in one conference. You don't have nowhere near the amount of quarterbacks in the NFC. And also, I look at it like this. I look at it with Green Bay. You look at what they did offensively. For a majority of the season, Aaron Rodgers didn't even play with his 2 rookie wide receivers for a variety of reasons, injuries, all those type of things. Didn't really have an off season to really, to really get acquainted with those guys, to really get all those reps. And then obviously during the season, for whatever reason, injuries and so on and so forth, they never really had a lot of reps together. We saw glimpses of what this offense would look like. We saw glimpses of Christian Watson, the explosiveness, and Romeo Doubs, and what he possibly would bring as a rookie wide receiver to the Green Bay Packers. And when I look at the Green Bay Packers, towards the end of the year, that defense started to play like what we thought they were going to play like in the beginning of the year. And so when you combine, if the defense comes out the way they played towards the end of the year, Aaron Rodgers get the reps with now second-year wide receivers in Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs, and just being in the NFC conference, to me, that's the easier path to get to the Super Bowl. Now, listen, I've been a guy that advocated about the Jets because I like the pieces, but if we're going to be realistic, the easier path is the NFC conference.
Right.
How is the NFC conference the easier path? He's been in that conference for his entire career. He's gone to 1 Super Bowl, okay? He's lost over the last couple years in the NFC championship game or the divisional game when he had the #1 seed. So I don't know. I mean, I'm sorry, but how is that easy? That's all I want to ask you. So when you look at it, yes, there's some bright quarterback play in the AFC. Aaron Rodgers isn't running from the quarterback play. Okay, Josh Allen wind up losing to Cincinnati, not only putting up 10 points at home, mind you. Okay, so when you talk about quarterback play, Justin Herbert, young quarterback, he loses in the second half. Offensive coordinator gets fired to Jacksonville after putting up 27 points. Doesn't mean anything. Sean Payton, we don't know what that's going to be in Denver. We probably think it's going to be good because of Sean, but we really don't know. Right? Kansas City, in the Chiefs, we know what that is in Patrick Mahomes. Las Vegas, 0, because he's probably gone. Okay, so you look at that division. What is that quarterback play? Now you go to the East. What is Tua? They want him back, but do we know what that's going to be? The Jets need him in the worst way at the quarterback spot. They're young and tenacious on defense with Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner and the rest of the cast of characters. They get Breece Hall back on the offensive side of the ball. We know what they got in Elijah Moore. We know what the Garrett Wilson could potentially be. They showed us as a young fighting team that they was in the mix, Dan. And if you think, and I think I've seen you say this, and I think I've said it before along with you, if they just got Carr, they were a playoff team. Now, what if they got Aaron Rodgers? What if they got Aaron freaking Rodgers? Because we don't know what Deshaun Watson's going to be after a 1.5-year layoff. We think he's going to be back to normal. What's going to happen with the Ravens and Lamar Jackson? Are they going to fix this offense? Because you certainly can't win a Super Bowl. He can be an MVP playing dynamic football, but they can't win a Super Bowl with that offense that they've had since he's been there. And so when you break down the quarterback,
Greg Roman's gone.
I know, but what's that going to be? Do we know what that's going to be? So my whole point to having that whole round of about conversation is the AFC and the New York Jets is the best spot for him. And it sounds like he's probably gone out of Green Bay anyway, just based on what he's saying. They're having conversations that does not involve him. So it sounds like to me they're not even respecting him anymore. They're like Brett Favre-ishing him and saying, we're going to do this without your input.
Yeah.
One or the other. Yeah, it's going to be tricky. I mean, like, look, you mentioned Derek Carr. I think, Jacoby Brissett is going to be out there trying to convince somebody he's their starter. I mean, like, that's where we are. And, Daniel Jones, Geno Smith, those guys are free agents, but I think everybody thinks they're probably likely to stay where they are, right? Anything can happen, but, it's going to be tough. I mean, there's the entire NFC South needs a quarterback, right? All 4 teams. The Raiders need to figure something out. And
Dan, the Raiders haven't given Carr permission yet, huh?
Well, no. Permission for what?
To seek a trade.
No, the Raiders would love to trade Carr, but
have they given him permission, him and his representatives?
Well,
I read somewhere that they didn't.
No, see, the deal is he has a no trade clause, so like they could come to him with a deal and then he could say yes or no to it.
Okay.
But the trick with Carr is on February 15th, his money for this year becomes guaranteed and a chunk of next year's money. So if you're Carr, you're sitting there thinking, well, I'm not going to agree to a trade. Like, why would I help the Raiders? Like, no, either cut me so I can go be a free agent, pick my team, or, I'm happy to stay and have that money guaranteed 3 days after the Super Bowl.
Right, so they will cut him.
I think so. I think unless he wants to do them the favor of agreeing to a trade.
Which he won't. So really, if you have the cash, you can go get Derek Carr if you want.
If you want to. I mean, look, what's a starting quarterback on the market going to go for these days? 35 plus, 35, 40 million a year? Yeah.
Derek Carr
you have that to spend?
Absolutely.
So Dan, if you're the 49ers, do you try to get a guy like Derek Carr?
Well, Kyle said yesterday that they weren't going to get what was the expression? Like a high-end veteran quarterback? I think they're going to need to probably look at bringing in a veteran because of the uncertain health status of Lance and Purdy. So, like I mentioned Brissett, right? Like here's a guy that you've seen. He held it down until Deshaun Watson came back. Like he filled that role pretty well for Cleveland.
He was okay.
So if you don't think – right, but if you're saying, well, we need a guy who can start maybe the first 4 or 5 games of the season, and I'm just pulling that number. I have no idea how many.
Not bury you.
And then be a reliable backup the rest of the way. Like that's a pretty good guy that fits that description. So I don't know whether he's going to be looking for something more than that. And again, and it is going to be a little bit of a seller's market there because there's probably more demand than supply. But yeah, I think if you're the 49ers, you have to look at some kind of veteran option in case those guys aren't ready to start the season.
Dan, obviously seeing Sean Payton go to Denver the other day, do you think it was a mistake for the Cowboys or the Chargers not to go after Payton?
Yes, I think he's a better coach than the coaches they have. But